Good afternoon, everybody. We'll give it just a few seconds here for people to join. This will be our second round 7 informational session with our subject matter experts from our federal partners for the Ohio Federal Research Network. And there will be a couple ways you can ask questions. You can put it in the chat. You can raise your hand and then come off mute if you would like. For that, those are probably the two easiest ways to ask a question when we get to that point. And next slide, please, Becky. All right, here is the agenda for today. So I will go through pretty quickly because this is the second time we've done it, and it'll probably be even quicker when we get into the third time next month. Just an overview for OFRN for maybe those that aren't real familiar with the program. Then we'll get right into our federal partner Q&A on our areas of interest for round 7. We have a few guest presenters for today towards the end, and also provide you with some resources and then wrap it up. And that should be around 90 minutes total time. So about 2:30, we should be done. Next slide, please. Just as a reminder, the goals and what OFRN is based off of is the triple helix model of innovation. So it's all about bringing academia and industry together to help solve problems that are presented by our government partners. For that, of course, really the primary goal is to find ways to increase federal dollars flowing into the state of Ohio to support research and development. And you'll see a slide here in just a second that shows what our ROI has been since the program started. Also, of course, supporting the projects that are key to the future development of the technology that is needed by our federal partners here with the state of Ohio as the supporting agency. And then, of course, to increase the extent to which we produce enhanced collaboration amongst those industry and academic partners that are out there. So, and then hopefully we're developing that lasting and sustainable knowledge and also collaboration really between our academic institutions and industry partners here in the state of Ohio. Next slide, please. This is what the sort of the foundational construct of the Ohio Federal Research Network. So we have our four primary federal partners: NASA Glenn Air Force Research Lab, National Space Air and Space Intelligence Center, and the Navy Medical Research Unit in Dayton, along with Ohio National Guard as a supporting agency helping out. The state of Ohio funds this program entirely, so it is all of the funding is from the state to support these needs of both industry and our federal partners. Parallax Advanced Research is the administrative arm of OFRN, so all we do is manage the program. We do not make any of the decisions on who gets funded. That is done by a combination of our Technical Review Council initially, which looks at all the proposals and rank orders them, and then the Executive Review Board a little later on, once we know exactly how much money we're going to have in the next biennial budget, that will then finalize those decisions. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, here's kind of a roll-up of where we're at starting in 2015 up through the end of last year, or at least from an academic calendar anyways, the end of last year. Really the bottom line are those three on the bottom. So far to date, the state of Ohio has put in about $62 million into this program. When you add the follow-on funding and the cost share from our industry and academic partners together, you're looking at a little more than a 7-to-1 return on investment, which in my opinion anyways, is pretty good for any program, especially something like this. Next slide, please. Some reminders here. So for round 7, and this is the same as previous rounds, but the project teams must include at least, and probably almost should underline maybe at least, but one Ohio industry member that has a physical location here in the state of Ohio. We always get the questions, can I have, somebody from outside the state participate? The answer is yes, as long as they're not the prime. and as long as you have at least one other industry member that is located here in the state of Ohio or has an office here in the state of Ohio. If they, of course, have the office here in Ohio, then in that case, they could be a lead applicant for that. At least two colleges and universities from the state of Ohio. And again, always get questions. Can I have somebody from outside the state of Ohio be a collaborative person on a proposal? And the answer is yes, as long as you also have two Ohio colleges and universities that are on the proposal. AFIT, Air Force Institute of Technology, it does qualify as a Ohio college/university. And then, of course, you need to make sure that you've got a federal partner or sponsor. So one of those primary federal partners that I mentioned before and are listed here on the slide are individuals that you would need to make sure that they support what your proposal. And then, of course, there is no financial commitment from the federal partner because we're talking about state of Ohio dollars, and we don't mix state and federal funding here. Next slide, please. What we're looking for, of course, is applied research. So we fully understand that many of the universities here in the state of Ohio, especially in the R1 and R2 categorization, do a lot of basic and foundational research, and that is great. Love to see all of that. That's not what we're planning on funding. So what we're looking for is probably something in the order of maybe a TRL 3 or higher. Or it qualifies, if you're familiar, of course, with the way the federal government works on their funding for S&T as like a 6.2 or 6.3 type category for that. So please, when you're thinking about putting your proposal together, please make sure that it falls into that applied research category and not basic or foundational. Next slide, please. This is just sort of a laundry list of what the proposals will consist of when you put them together. All of this, of course, is on our website, and there'll be links to that as part of this slide deck, as well as this slide deck will be posted on the OFRN website, which is ohiofrn.org. But you'll see some links on the slide deck here for that as well. Next slide. Again, just the additional items that are required to be part of your proposal, the Student Experience and Engagement Initiative, which has become hugely popular over the last two rounds and is being continued into round 7, I think is something that really sets this program apart from many other programs that are out there by requiring the teams to actively engage students. And we use the definition of student is fairly broad. So it's anywhere from an undergraduate up through, somebody postdoc working with a faculty member, maybe on developing a technology solution for one of our areas of interest. There is a training coming up on March the 6th next week. That is mandatory for at least one person from any team that is planning on putting together a proposal. If there is, for some reason, that you absolutely cannot make that training and nobody on your team can make that training, please let us know. Send Becky an email or myself an email. The training will be recorded, and then we will be able to give you access to the recorded training at a later date through a password-protected website that will record the fact that you watched the training, so that we can ensure that everybody sees the content, excuse me, that's included in that. Next slide, please. Here's just the dates and times of the training that's coming up. I mentioned the next webinar after this one, where you'll have an opportunity to ask questions, will be on March the 20th. I just mentioned the conference, the offers conference and proposal training on March the 6th, next week. And then we will accept proposals, questions through April 18th, and then the proposals themselves are due by April the 28th. And please note the time there, 5 p.m. Eastern time, as far as when they're due to us. We will notify the selection of the finalists, hopefully by the end of May. And then we'll go through potentially some one-on-one conversations with members of our TRC, excuse me, if it's requested. Then the awards will be announced in the July-August timeframe after we know exactly how much funding we have for this round. And then plan on projects starting in that September-October timeframe. Next slide, please. These are the areas of interest for round 7. Again, today what we'll do is I will go through each of the areas of interest in order of 1 through 7. You'll be free to ask questions about that area of interest and the subtopics that are listed here if you have questions. The plan is a maximum of about 8 to 10 minutes per area of interest. And when I get to the end of that time period, I'm going to have to cut you off because we need to go to the next area of interest. And if there are questions that don't get answered, we'll capture those. So that is also a good reason to put your question in the chat, even if you also ask it live as well, just to make sure that it does get answered into our FAQ section on our website. All right, I think we're ready to go into our areas of interest. So Becky, next slide, please. So the first one is our area of interest is hypersonics. The subtopics, as you can see here on the slide. And I'm going to start the clock here now, and you can feel free, if you're interested in this particular area of interest, to ask any questions that you have. And our subject matter experts from our federal partners will do their best to answer your questions. So feel free to please use the chat function, or you can raise your hand. And Becky, you can help me out with keeping track of some of these things too, if you would, please. Oh, and Becky's reminding me that if you ask a question, if you could please put the AOI number at the front of the question too, that of course will help to make sure when we capture the information that we know which AOI the question was meant for if it doesn't get answered live. Okay, let's see. Robert Corrigan raised a hand, so you can go ahead and come off of mute to ask your question. I think that should work. And Robert, you can go ahead and ask the question. I'm not hearing you, so I'm not sure if you're off of mute, or Becky, if you can help out here.
Yeah, Robert, I took you off mute, so you can go ahead. And if you're still having sound problems, if you want to go ahead and put it in the Q&A, you can do that.
While we're working on that, I see there is a question that's kind of general in nature about the March 6th attendance being in person. Obviously, the answer from our perspective is that it's always best to be able to attend these things it's a virtual webinar, but obviously being able to be there and watch it real time, just because that way, if you have questions, it's going to be easier to get them answered as opposed to having to watch a recording of it at a later date. But as I mentioned earlier, we do understand how busy people are and that you may not be able to do that. So if you're not going to be able to be there in person, please let us know so that we can make sure that you watch it at a later date. Let's see. Kenny Johnson has his hand raised. Can you come off mute?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, on the topic number 1, materials and technologies enable variable geometry, aerodynamic surfaces. Just a question about, are we talking reusable or non-reusable surfaces?
Yeah, this is Pat Dunlap. I'll answer that one. We're mainly focused on reusable applications as much as possible.
Okay.
So,
All right. Thank you. I see one in the chat. AOI for the subtopic 2 says what a thermal is it? What says thermal? I wonder if that's thermal management device TEM be considered a fit within this category.
All right.
Sorry, could
Go
you
ahead.
repeat that question?
Yeah, it said would a thermal is what was typed, but I think that might be thermal management device TEM be considered a fit within this category.
I'm not sure what. This is Justin Delmar with AFRL. I'm not. Could you, whoever asked that, could you provide a little more detail with what you mean?
Yeah, so Kevin Retz asked that question. So Kevin, I don't know if you can come off of mute if you have that capability. No.
Yeah, I think I'm off mute now.
Oh, yes, you are. Go right ahead.
Well, a device that uses vertically lined carbon nanotubes as a part of a thermal management device for electronics work within that category.
I would say that we're not excluding anything. If that
Okay.
is the technology that could fit into the bounds that hypersonics, is going to impose on some electronics, then yeah, that would be something we're interested in.
Okay. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Again, sort of a general question in the chat about somebody from the teams being present on March 6th. That does not mean that you have to have the entire team put together. It just means that if your organization, whether you're an academic or an industry organization, you're planning on putting a proposal together, then go ahead and attend the training, and then you can put the team together afterwards. After the fact is fine, or we can help you put the team together as well if you need some help on that. Let's see. Brett Haber has his hand raised. Go right ahead.
Hear me?
Yes.
There we go. The system was a little slow. I was just wondering, topic 1 here, the variable geometry of aerodynamic surfaces, to expand on that. Are we only looking at what do you mean by variable geometry? There's morphing wings and things like that.
hi, Brett. It's Pat Dunlap. I'll
Yeah, hey,
answer
Pat.
that. So yeah, I would say all of that would be included. I think it's a fairly broad category.
Okay. Does it have to be variable geometry, or can it be static geometry, or is that more under 2?
That might be more under 2. Yeah, one's pretty focused on variable geometry.
Okay. So I think there'd be a big emphasis there on how do you connect that variable geometry and how do you seal the surfaces then?
Yeah, sealing would definitely be a part of that. Yes.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Pat.
Yep.
All right. Excellent. Any other questions on AOI 1?
I'll ask another one.
Okay, go ahead.
The thermal management aspect in 2 here, would that be, could that be something as simple as advanced TPS? Are we talking hot structure? You also have heat rejection there, but I'm thinking more structure that is more easily integrated into the system that protects the system.
The main focus of that topic is to identify technologies that can um, uh, either move the heat from affected locations, or generate power to reduce the thermal load on the vehicle, or reject heat with some kind of very high lift thermal system or something like that. Managing the thermal rather than just dealing with it.
Okay, thank you.
Great. I'm showing about 10 minutes for this one here, so let's go ahead and go to this next slide, please, Becky. And while we're doing that, there's a question about lead industry team members in Ohio and not majority U.S. owned, but has an industrial partner that is a U.S. majority owner. Is this sufficient to qualify? That sounds, you're starting to get into technicalities probably on that one, so we'll answer that one after the fact here, just to make sure that we fully understand the question for you, because I would rather not give a answer here live just in case I say the wrong thing. AOI number 2, health and human performance. So you see the subtopics that are here in front of you. If there is anybody that would like to ask a question for this particular subtopic and AOIs, again, you can use the Q&A or the chat, or you can raise your hand and come off of mute. Trying to keep track of all the various ways of potentially somebody asking a question here. Let's see. Any questions for health and human performance for these two specific subtopics? Tehran, please go ahead and come off of mute. I don't hear anything. We do have a question here, maybe while Tehran, while you're either trying to figure out how to come off of mute, or you can put something in the Q&A for us. It says, for AOI 2, does this include civilian or only military application? Any of our federal partners like to take a stab at that?
Yeah, this is Eric Robinson at NAMRD. So it's primarily the case that we had in mind was primarily like combat casualty care type things where you're in kind of a remote or austere care environment. But I mean, certainly some of those lessons could be applied in other civilian domains as well. So I guess to the extent that there's overlap, I think some civilian problems could be addressed.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, Eric. This is Kevin Schmidt with the Air Force Research Lab. I'll just add, from our perspective, we're interested in certainly the military application, the Air Force application. Mark, maybe you'll expand on this. I think important to this is the Ohio ecosystem too. So explicitly and only one of these subtopics I think I reread, but to both of them is talking about applications in the healthcare sector outside of the military, kind of dual use aspects of the technology. So that's my perspective from the Air Force Research Lab. But I also, you said civilian or military. NASA Glenn is also a big part of our federal partnership here and crafting these topics. And so I don't think, they're not military. They probably have a different perspective. Over.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, appreciate the that. Actually, that's a great follow on there is to make sure everybody does understand is that, this program has a 18-month approximately period of performance that goes along with it. And really the goal at the end of that 18 months is to be able to commercialize that dual use tech that has been developed during that time period. So there really are opportunities, or there should be opportunities, and of course we as the program managers try to help out with that as well as a number of other of our collaborators that try to ensure that the projects that get funded have some type of follow-on funding opportunities. And again, those follow-on funding opportunities, although most of the time are federal, but they're not always. They could be venture capital. They could be additional funding from Ohio or potentially other civilian locations, or they could be from larger corporations that decide that they like the tech and they want to commercialize it. So there are a lot of potential ways to be able to get the tech that you develop further commercialized at the end of that period of performance when the state funding expires. Let's see. Looks like there's some questions here in the chat. Let me see if I can back up here and find ones. One about how to submit a proposal. I'll let Becky answer that one, or that'll be part of the FAQ, or you can go to our website, the OFRN.org, which will step you through that as well, and the solicitation. For AI-supported logistics, can one include human AI teaming topics in that subtopic, is a question.
This is Eric Robbins again. Yeah, I addressed that in the Q&A just a second ago, but just so everybody can see it. It would certainly be a part of that, definitely a component. So for example, one of the parts of the more detailed description is looking at, how will the system potentially assess the expertise or the knowledge level of the user and adjust accordingly. But it wouldn't be the main thrust of the proposal. So I would say it's definitely involved, but it probably wouldn't be the sole aspect that you'd be looking at.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is similar along the same lines. Another question, does it only include AI software solutions to support medical logistics, or also data gathering and or telehealth capabilities to assist in medical logistics?
I concur with Eric's response to the previous question. Mark, what you just said is maybe a little bit more detailed to be able to give a response. I mean, generally speaking, I think some of those aspects would be applicable and of interest, but it would come down to the details of what do you mean by telehealth. I don't know, maybe the person who asked the question wants to elaborate a little bit more, or
Yeah, it was Manish Kumar. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. I don't know if you can come off of mute or not, if you'd like to be more detailed on the question. Not hearing anything.
Hi, I have a question. My name is Tamajit Ghosh. Can you please hear me?
Yep. Why don't you go ahead while we're waiting to see if Manish can come off of mute as well.
Yeah, sure. So I'm a assistant professor here at Rice State University. So I'm just wondering to participate in this program, whether one needs to be a US citizen or at least a green card holder. Is there any kind of such requirement that needs to be followed?
There is, and the solicitation, which is again on our website, goes into detail as to what the requirements are for that. So we'll make sure as part of our FAQ, Becky, that we outline those again for everybody.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Mark,
Manish? Yep.
I'm here.
Yep, go ahead.
So by telehealth capabilities, I mean ability to send a device to battlefield where you have injuries, where you can get a connection back to the medical service providers. So you have better information of what kind of injuries do you have, and you can that can assist in medical logistics. In a similar way, you can send other devices such as drones to gather information about the surrounding area. So you can probably get a better information for evacuations and planning evacuations and all. So
Got it. Yeah, I think generally speaking, that's of a lot of interest, and you might also consider the autonomy subtopic one might also be of interest to you. My
that's
read
all.
of these subtopics here for AOI 2 is that the connectivity piece falls more squarely within 2 compared to 1, but that's my read of how these subtopics are broken out under these very similar topics. But that connectivity piece is an important aspect of what we're interested in, kind of edge and how it interfaces with cloud environments. From the Air Force perspective, there's some particular use cases there that we're interested in. If you want to reach out, I'll drop my email in the chat and we could talk about that. And that offer goes to anyone who's interested in talking about these topics further. Thanks.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it. So last question on AOI 2 here is from Teron Davis. In the Q&A says predictive AI to support medical triage, life-saving interventions, and medical logistics utilization across the continuum of en route care. Says asking for a colleague that cannot attend today, is there any additional information about particular desired data types or technologies for implementation?
Kevin, I think I'll let you handle that one if you don't mind me putting you on the spot. I know, we had talked about it has to be compatible with kind of existing architecture and stuff, but I think you know more about that than me.
Yeah. I'm not really sure. Actually, I need to find the right words to say I could track it down. There's a certain approved system. I think JOMIS is the acronym, JOMIS. Maybe it's better to answer that question offline, but that there are particularly relevant tools that are being fielded currently, and we would want developed algorithms to be able to integrate with those. There are particular data types on our mind. So generally speaking, Air Force relevant data types. One example of what that could look like is the DoD trauma registry has like a mass casualty data set, for example. That's like a well-known thing, but difficult to access. But we're also really interested in your ideas of particularly relevant data that you have access to. So I think that could work in a couple different ways. We at one point in time discussed providing data sets to performers, but we moved away from that being on our plate. So that's not something that we would be providing over.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it. Okay, let's go to AOI number 3, please, Becky. Okay, aerospace power management, materials and distribution. These are the 2 subtopics that are part of AOI 3. Open for questions from anybody that has one on AOI number 3. And Becky, I know there was one or 2 of these subtopics, I can't remember if it was AOI 3, but on here so let me know if we don't have a subject matter expert today that can talk to one of the subtopics or one of the AOIs so that we can just take those questions via the chat or Q&A.
Will do. Let's see. We do not have anyone that can answer for subtopic 2 on this one.
Okay. So we do have somebody from subtopic 1. So if you have a question on subtopic 1 on this particular one on aerospace electrification, we do have one of our experts that can hopefully answer your questions. If you have a question on subtopic 2, just again, feel free to please put it in the Q&A or the chat, and all that will get recorded, and we will get an answer for you, and then it will be published on our website under the frequently asked questions portion of the website. I don't see anybody raising hands. Becky Anno, do you want to go ahead and answer the question that's in the Q&A about IP? Or do you want to, would you rather do that offline?
I will probably do that offline because I need to look at the RFP, but it should be spelled out in there. And then part of it has to do with negotiations you have with your team members.
Yeah,
and
that was
contractors.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna, the way I was gonna kind of answer that question, is that really it just comes down to whatever the teaming agreements are that you and whether you're an academic institution and you agree to with your industry partners or vice versa there. The bottom line is that we, as Parallax Advanced Research, we do not hold any IP at all. That is not what we do. It's not part of this program to do that. It is totally up to you all as to how the IP is held at the end of the period of performance. Okay, one more chance here. Any questions on this one? Because if not, we can go ahead and go to AOI 4, and then if there's any time left over, we can always try to go back if need be, but I don't see any questions. So let's go to AOI number 4 then, please. So commercial space, low Earth orbit. These are the two subtopics. Questions on AOI 4. Again, you can raise your hand and we'll try to figure out how to get you to come off of mute, or you can ask it in the Q&A or the chat. Any of those will work. I'm doing my best to keep track of all of them here. I have a question for the next AOI, but we'll wait on that one here for a little bit. Any questions on AOI 4, commercial space, low Earth orbit, the subtopics, low leakage cryogenic valves, or space-based situational awareness? I actually was sitting in on as an aside here, but was sitting in on a Space Force webinar just the other day and had their listing of topics of their priorities, and space-based situational awareness was number 1 on the priority list for the United States Space Force. So very topical here. Any questions on AOI 4? Either we did a really good job the first time, Becky, or for some reason just don't have anybody that has any questions today. This is amazing. Robert Corrigan, you should be able to come off of mute, hopefully, and you go ahead and ask your question. I see you're off of mute. I don't hear anything though. Are you able to? I'm not sure if it's on our end or your end, Robert. Becky, it shows that he's off mute, right?
Yes, he's off mute. But we do have a question in the Q&A from Leah Breckner.
Yeah, who are our
Otherwise-
federal partners? Yeah, for the space-based situational awareness. So I think you can probably answer that, Becky.
Let me see here.
I think it's both AFRL and NASA Glenn are the partners. So
For sure, AFRL. I'm just seeing AFRL at the moment.
okay. We do have a question for number 2 in the chat, which says, would space-based situational awareness also include the classification of unconventional waveforms with regards to SIGINT? I'm not sure who our representative is on this one, Becky.
Let's see, we have Megan Pike, but I think she is just for subtopic 1. So I'm not sure she can answer that one. But I can forward this to our person.
Okay.
And have an answer later.
All right. And we also have, let's see, another one in the Q&A says, can you clarify what is expected from showing a convincing path? So that's probably something we'll need to get an answer on also and put in the on the website. Because I'm making, yeah, it's for subtopic 2 there, I believe.
Yeah, I'm making a note of it here.
Okay. As well as Robert Corrigan's question which is for subtopic 2 as well. Does the Space Force have any critical information needs to be gathered on spacecraft such as MEGM emissions, etc.? So we'll need to get that one answered as well. And we'll post again, the answers to these will be posted on our website under the FAQ section. Although
Okay, I have that noted.
give us obviously a few days. All right, well, let's go ahead and go to AOI number 5 then. And we already have a question in the Q&A for under quantum technologies for subtopic number 2, which is, can you merge between a novel cybersecurity platform utilizing intrusion detection systems and quantum technologies for operation or mission relevant environments? IDS platform comes from a former Air Force SBIR that made it to phase 2. So do we have somebody to answer that question, Becky?
Yeah, I'm so Chandra Gurdas here on the line. Yeah, I'm trying to understand the question. Cheyenne.
Yeah, I don't know if Cheyenne, can you come off of mute maybe and be more specific on your question?
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you all for your time. So my question comes from my team. We're currently going through an asset transfer agreement with a company that had a phase 2 SBIR award from the Air Force to create a novel cybersecurity platform focusing on 0-day attacks and intrusion detection systems. Can we, and the SBIR was ended in good standing. Are we able to take that technology and pivot into the quantum technology space?
Yeah, I don't see why not. So, of course, that pivot has to, involve quantum, physics, right? So, I guess it really depends on what the nature of that pivot looks like.
So, in my mind, and I'm not a super technical person, and we have people for that. We have software engineers. But in my mind, I'm thinking we've been hearing quite a bit about post-quantum solutions. So I'm thinking, could we apply some type of post-quantum solution to our intrusion detection systems platform? Is that something that's possible? And is that something that we could be helped to achieve through the Ohio Federal Research Network?
Yeah. So I have to admit I don't know too much about post quantum solutions. When you say post quantum solutions, do you mean cybersecurity solutions that that can potentially get around cyber cybersecurity implemented through quantum technologies?
So when I'm thinking post-quantum solutions, my team, I don't know about everyone else, but we've heard people discussing once quantum computing starts to take off, any companies that want to adapt or have to adapt to quantum computing, there's a potential that they're going to have to completely strip and rip out their systems and replace them with quantum compatible systems. So when I'm thinking post-quantum solutions, I'm thinking of a solution that can perform excellent now with dealing with IDS and zero-day attacks and the prevention of those, and then keep any of our customers or clients who have to upgrade to a quantum solution or have to make their systems quantum ready. Could we build something out that allows them to just flip a switch and now you're quantum ready, as opposed to doing a whole rip and replace?
Yeah, I don't think I don't think that would fit under this topic, unfortunately. Yep.
Okay, I still have more questions, but I'm going to talk to some technical people first to see if I can get the wording correct.
Excellent. Thanks, Cheyenne. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Yep. And if you do have additional questions, feel free. You can always send them, to us through, there's a OFRN email address that is part of the slide deck at the end here that you can use. So you can always ask questions at any time, and we'll try to get to them as quickly as we can and post the answers on the FAQ section too. So for that.
Okay, and I guess my last question, and please forgive me for taking up so much time. When you guys are mentioning in section 2, in operation in mission relevant or extreme environments, what exactly are you talking about? Are we dealing with military vehicles? Are we dealing with power stations? Or what mission relevant or extreme environments are you guys referring to in this space?
Yeah, so for AFRL, because we deal with both space environments and just regular high altitude environments on aircraft. So we're talking about environments where there's significant temperature variation, significant vibration, significant electronic noise. For space in particular, we're talking about technologies that would be rad hard, so things like that.
Okay, so specifically just for space?
No, air platforms as well.
Air platforms as
Yeah,
well.
this is Evan Katz from NASA Glenn. I would echo the same thing as well. We're interested in the space and the aero platforms too.
Okay, perfect. Thank you all.
Excellent. Thanks. Appreciate it. We do have a question in the Q&A asking if there's any specifications on the types of quantum hardware that you want the teams to target or prioritize.
Yeah, so maybe I'll answer this one first. So this is Evan again from NASA Glenn. So I think I'll answer that by just talking about the types of things that we would be interested in measuring from a science perspective or even from like mobility perspective. And then one could try to fit devices into that. So like we are interested in like magnetic and electric field measurements, gravity measurements, acceleration measurements, um, measuring rotation, or even measuring time. And with these measurements, the quantum systems could be nice if they could show a quantifiable benefit over a conventional system. So again, that's just some of the areas that we're looking at, and the technologies could be some that could fit into those different categories. That's all.
Thank you. Chandrika, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think Evan captured most of it. We are interested in things like accelerometers, clocks, gyroscopes, magnetic field sensors, like Evan mentioned. But even things like temperature sensing is of relevance.
Excellent, thanks. Okay. Becky, let's go on to AOI 6 for right now then. This is the autonomy category, so subtopics, and of course, sounds like they're very broad here, but there's obviously a lot more detailed description on the solicitation on our website for both of these. But autonomous systems operations and operator-defined metrics for trusted autonomy. So if you have a question, again, you can pose it in the Q&A or the chat, or raise your hand, and you can come off of mute and ask the question. And I'm looking to see, I don't see any questions yet. Here's one in the Q&A. Can autonomous systems operations apply for single or multi-agent space platforms operating during rendezvous and proximity operations if it can support real-time visualizations?
Yes.
That sounded
Becky,
definitive.
you have me for that topic. I am not that topic. I'm electrically insulating thermally conductive materials.
I'm sorry, was that a question or a statement? I missed the first part of it.
I think Becky, this is Marisol Liscano, NASA Glenn.
Oh,
Becky
great.
has me as a SME for this topic, but that's not my topic. Mine should be electrically insulative, thermally conductive materials.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes, you're on the next AOI.
Yep, you're on the next one.
Okay, I'll be ready for that one.
Thank you. All right. Any, let's see. Question from Simon. I assume that a proposal which meets the criteria of more than one AOI will be positively received. Well, you can submit, obviously, separate proposals for a specific AOI. If you're asking, can you combine AOIs into one proposal, I'm not so sure that that necessarily would be probably the best way to go about it, just because it makes it very difficult probably for our TRC to be able to score it when it comes to binning it in a specific AOI against a subtopic. Any questions on autonomy? Let's see. From Stephen Wimbrow, here's a question. Would an AI/ML pipeline for the classification of waveforms in real time fit this category?
I want to say yes if it's kind of accelerating the time to decision. I think this for subtopic 1, I assume you mean
Yes.
it This is all about algorithm development, low swap algorithm development. So if the pipeline is enabling that or achieves that, then I would say yes.
And similar question maybe for subtopic 1. Are you looking for fundamental algorithmic solutions or experimental demonstrations, especially in the precision agricultural domain or automobile control?
Can you repeat the second part of that question?
Yeah, so they're asking about if you're looking for fundamental algorithmic solutions or experimental demonstrations, but then they're saying especially in the precision agricultural domain or automobile control.
Right. So if I recall correctly, this was one of the topics where it specifically listed dual use, other dual use applications of interest. And I think it was saying, for example, precision agriculture. So the first part of the question, are we interested in fundamental algorithm development? Like Mark was saying at the beginning, this isn't basic research, exploratory research. So we're very much interested in the military application, the dual use application of this technology. And those those domains that you just listed, I think are very relevant to Ohio. So I'd be happy to talk about it more if I'm not answering the question. Over.
Thank you. Yeah, Krishna, if you want to come off of mute, you can always ask a more detailed question. Maybe in the meantime, Dennis Fisher asked, is this space-based terrestrial or low-altitude aerial?
We didn't specify. It's both air and space. I think part of it might involve terrestrial considerations. Planning and logistics, maybe you have to get a piece of technology somewhere on the ground. That's just my first answer here. And so all of those applications, all of those spaces, over.
Excellent, thank you. We have another question that says, can you comment on whether solutions related to R&D on sensing the operator are in scope for measuring trust in autonomy? Is it a better fit in subtopic 1 or 2? In addition, apart from the operational settings, is R&D for training in scope?
I would say no on training. I don't think what you just described fits subtopic 1. I think it very clearly fits subtopic 2. And the answer is yes, very much the traditional psychology, human factors kinds of tools, technologies, approaches are part of what we're going for here in subtopic 2. And additionally, bidirectional measures of trust is aspect of this. So how is the model, the AI interpreting the human is also important as how's the human, kind of interpreting or trusting the AI. So I hope that helps. Over.
Excellent, thank you. Right.
Kevin, can you hear me? This is Krishna.
Yes, go ahead. We can hear you now.
Okay, so my question is predominantly being like, are you looking at algorithmic solutions? Are we like, especially like multi-agent team mapping for, let's say, precision agriculture, where it involves ground robots and aerials? Because the topic talks about spiking neural networks. It goes beyond. Are we looking at conventional hardware? Or are we looking at spiking neural network hardware or edge platforms? That's the question.
Yeah, okay. I would leave that to I want to hear the latest and greatest ideas that you have. So as far as hardware considerations, it's still that kind of low swap, low size, weight, and power. If that happens to be a spiking neural network or neuromorphic kind of hardware, great. I think someone else mentioned maybe there's a particular pipeline that might accelerate those sorts of things. And so that is very much in scope, in addition to the algorithm development side of things. So thanks for mentioning the hardware aspects.
Okay, thank you.
Last question here, which is a two-parter. Tehran, do you want to try coming off of mute?
Yeah, can everybody hear me now?
Yep, go ahead.
Perfect. So yeah, I just want to know, is there a strong desire for metrics of AI trust? I guess I'm just going to read it now. And implementation in the moment. So like, is there a strong desire to have something that's giving like information about the human's trust of the AI or the AI's trust of the human in the task itself in the moment? Or are less real-time solutions open for consideration here? Something where it's kind of like there was a certain degree of trust the last go round and maybe interventions improving later on.
I think that's a great question. And actually, I want to answer that offline and talk to some colleagues here because now that I'm thinking of it, could be both. I want to say certainly the real-time metrics are of interest, but perhaps using these metrics for after-action review, therefore could be used for training purposes. Maybe that's where the earlier question of training comes from. So my response was going to be certainly the real-time metrics of trust are where I think the state of the art is, but there's other partners, it's not just me, there's other partners who are defining these subtopics. So I'd rather follow up with that one with my colleagues and seek their opinion too. Over.
Okay. And then my second question was, are there any particular markers of trust that you guys consider essential, right? And maybe that's something that you're leaving up for the teams to uncover, but like it was something like less monitoring of the AI system or more responsiveness of the human or something along those lines.
No, I don't think there's anything in particular that I could specifically say must be required, if that's what you're asking. I'm leaving it up to we'll leave it up to for what you propose. What's your read of the best metrics that you have to offer for measuring bidirectional trust between the human and the machine? And certainly the classic, human factors and psychology sense of the terms and measurements and approaches to the problem, human machine teaming problem, are very much relevant. Maybe there's new things that you are thinking about that aren't in that literature. I hope that helps. And again,
Yes.
with all these things, please reach out and there's only so much you could talk through in a 10-minute question and answer thing. So looking forward to seeing the proposals. Over.
Thank you.
All right, awesome, thanks. And let's go to the next AOI, Becky. So this is AOI 7, Advanced Materials Technology, and the subtopics here. We have one question in the Q&A already for this one, where they're asking, are there any specific material of interest for oxide dispersion strengthened alloy or specific manufacturing method?
Hi, yeah, this is Eric Brizes. I'm from NASA Glenn Research Center. I think when we were developing this subtopics, particularly subtopic 1, we were focused on kind of getting a better understanding of GRX 810, which is the nickel cobalt chrome medium entropy alloy developed out of NASA that uses oxide dispersion strengthening as one of the methods to increase elevated temperature performance. However, it doesn't have to be GRX 810. It could be other oxide dispersion strengthened alloys. Additionally, AFRL, I know, is very interested in oxide dispersion strengthening of refractory alloys. So in particular, niobium-based alloys with an oxide dispersion strengthening. For production methods, I can say what Glenn and what AFRL have been working on is mostly laser powder bed fusion additive manufacturing. But that's kind of the point of this subtopic, is we're limited in volume, build volume with that method. So novel techniques to produce these alloys at scale greater than that, that what you can see with additive manufacturing would be of interest. Does that answer your question?
So it was from Hamid. So hopefully that answered his question.
Okay.
If not, he can raise his hand and we can have him come off Zoom, mute. We do have 2 questions for subtopic 2. Let me see if we can get to those. The first one is from Julia Zhang. I don't know, Julia, do you want to come off of mute and ask the question live, or I can read it? Up to you. I'll give you a chance here to see if you want to come off of mute. Oh, she doesn't know how to unmute. Okay. The question is, and I'll do my best to read it. Is 100? It looks like, is it kilovolts per millimeter specifically for high voltage cable insulation? Is there a specific quantified requirement for the viscosity of potting/impregnation material?
On the dielectric strength, I'm not sure what the solicitation asked for. So I would imagine that that's something we would have to refer to back on the actual solicitation, because I didn't read it, so I didn't have time to, sorry. But that one I'm not sure of. As far as the viscosities, anytime you're doing impregnation of the slot material, in order to really get a good fill without a lot of voids, is you're going to have very low viscosity. So I would imagine that that you're really looking for what's typically used, I guess, in maybe some epoxies or something, but where you have a very low Newtonian kind of fluid viscosity would probably be preferable. Once you start adding fillers, that can really change. So so it depends on how you're doing it and how you plan to impregnate it, because you can have some very tight areas of space that need to be, potted, but they're very hard to get to. So some of it may be that you have to do it under pressure or something like that to make sure that you can at least remove any defects or cavities that could lead to discharge and degradation of your material. I'm not sure if I'm answering this question correctly, but that's as good as I can give you right now. So it just really depends on what you're going to be making, how you're going to be making it to make those slot liners. And is it something that's made on the outside and then you fill it in? Like, for example, can you cast it in one thing and then you fill it in somewhere else? I mean, I don't know how, what the process you're thinking of doing is, so it's hard for me to answer that question, other than what I'm giving you, right? Because everything depends on your materials that you select, from the polymers to the fillers to any kind of dispersions that you may need, and if you're using fillers.
Awesome, thanks. Appreciate it. And again, these will all be put into our FAQs, and of course we go back and give all of our experts an opportunity to maybe add some additional text to the questions as well for that. In the chat, I've got a question here that says, again, this is on the subtopic 2, is there a targeted application for the thermally conductive impregnation material? Is it for motors and generators for aerospace applications such as vacuum pressure impregnation resin for motor stator winding, or is it for other electronic devices?
That one we would have to refer to the person who wrote it. I mean, he works on motors, so I assumed it was for motors, but I don't know. I didn't read it. So I would refer that back to Andy Woodworth. He would be the one that knows that answer. And he may also know those targeted answers where, what the breakdown strength needs to be and stuff like that, because he's the one that wrote the application. Last time I did it for the Cable Works. So I wasn't involved in this one.
Okay. Let's see. We have a couple of folks have their hands raised. Brett, you had your hand up first. Do you want to come off of mute and ask your question?
Yeah, so I think I'm off mute. Yeah, it looks like
you are.
For the subtopic number 1 here, GRX 810 was mentioned, as well as other dispersion strengthened alloys. Second point in the topic there was joining. are we looking at, are you guys interested in just joining dispersion strengthened alloys to one another, or to other alloys, or even to high temperature composites?
Hi, Eric again. Joining is broad on purpose. Things that are of interest to both NASA and AFRL are, we know that typical joining processes, you know, whether it be like arc-based or like higher density laser-based processes, have a large enough heat input to where you might not get the same oxide dispersion quality after welding as you do in your base material.
Okay.
So part of that is figuring out to what effect and to what effect that's happening. But there's also different joining methods that have not been explored extensively for GRX 810. I kind of want to get into what we talked about earlier, and maybe like what some applications of GRX 810 that could be interesting are. In particular, there have been some people reaching out to us at NASA saying, "Hey, we see the great properties that GRX 810 has. Can you make it in sheet form?" And we basically say, well, right now we're just limited to laser powder bed fusion, as that's how we've developed the alloy and that's how it's been typically, employed. We don't really know how to produce it in sheet. We don't know if it can be produced in sheet and have the same properties or not. And then all of the typical joining processes for sheet, whether it be like resistant spot welding or, other high frequency processes for, butt welding sheet, or even friction stir welding of larger like plates. All those types of things are of interest in the joining aspect of GRX 810.
Okay, so it sounds like you're mostly interested in figuring out how to, I'll simplistically say, weld GRX 810 to other metallic alloys. You're not at this stage of the game looking at how you might join GRX 810 to non-metallic materials.
As of right now, I guess that would be a safe assumption, but I think there is interest in, I guess, like, right, metallic to non-metallic brazing or that type of thing. But I don't know if that's one of the priorities. I'd have to check with the guys here. But yeah, the main problem is how do you join it without ruining its dispersion quality and then therefore ruining its high temperature properties. So.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Brett. Christopher Barrett, you want to come off of mute and ask your question?
Yeah, thank you. I had a very similar question to the one that was just asked about the welding. And so I've done work with GRX 810 with complex parts before. Are you also interested in complex part to complex part welding? Because I know that's a major limitation to laser powder bed fusion.
Yes, absolutely. I think that would be very strong to put in a proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, thanks. Appreciate it. Okay. I think for time-wise anyways, that's probably about it for today. So any questions that we didn't get answered, we will make sure that we get back to the subject matter experts and then get them on the FAQ page on our website. Becky, you can go ahead to the next slide, please. And again, thanks to all of our subject matter experts who were willing to answer the questions for today. We appreciate your time very much. Next slide. Dave Nestick, let me turn it over to you for a couple minutes.
Thanks, Mark. I really appreciate this opportunity to introduce the Ohio Manufacturing Innovation Center as one of the new resources in Ohio to assist with the student experiential engagement aspect of the proposals. OMIC is a first of its kind microelectronics innovation center, but we have broad technical capabilities. We are a 501c3 that was set up with Ohio Department of Development and Ohio Department of Higher Education funds. And we source interns from any academic institute across Ohio and even beyond. All of the STEM interns are Ohio based. We are a combined R&D and workforce development organization. So Becky, if you go to the next slide. So we have experienced mentors, that work with all of the interns. OMIC can identify and hire appropriate talent for from any institution for these projects. The interns can be guided by the academic PI or by industry leads for the projects. So OMIC interns can be chosen to align with industry technical objectives as well. A win for OMIC is if you hire one of the interns after one of the projects. That's our objective. Technical capabilities, our core is electronic design, prototyping, and testing. We're augmented by partnerships for mechanical and material needs like CNC, additive, injection molding, and metalwork. And we also, OMIC, companies that partner with OMIC, we provide support for SBIR and STTR proposal development and funded project execution. So this is a natural progression for many of the OFRN projects, and that's what we seek to do. We seek to help commercialize these technologies and give the students experience that they wouldn't normally get in their academic training, so that they come out of the program with with real world experience. So that's OMIC. If anybody is interested, I don't have a slide with our contact information, so Becky was going to drop it in the chat. Innovating Ohio, www.innovatingohio.org. You can contact me at dave@innovatingohio.org. So I appreciate that. Mark, thank you for the time.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it. All right, Becky, next slide, which I think is YBI. So Stephanie Gaffney, go right ahead.
I am here. Can
Make
everyone
it
hear me?
easy. Yes, we can. Go ahead.
So I have a couple of slides here. As our name states, YBI was founded as a B2B software incubator. We have since pivoted and we've started to work with advanced manufacturing startups within the small business community. We have added advanced manufacturing capabilities into our portfolio of service since 2012 with America Makes on our campus. So next slide. Some of the things that YBI does, we have a couple different legs to our stool. We have our incubator side, a youth entrepreneurship, supply chain diversity, and the advanced manufacturing side, which has worked previously with OFRN in the past, over the past probably 7 or 8 years. Next slide. Some of the things that we have done in the past 10 years, we've led about $75 million in government funding. So that was over about 30 plus projects, state, federal, and private grants that we've helped integrate into the supply chain. We work into the higher TRL, MRL levels with commercialization activities. And we have extensive experience. Some of the things that we focus on are 3D printed sand cores, so binder jetting. So we help commercialize that technology and help set Hometown Products up with the largest site in the world with 3D sand printers. We have a deep connection with regional industry with over 300 project partners. So if you're looking for project partners or people to come in, we can help arrange that as well. Some of the things that we do in-house, reverse engineering, printing, post-processing, we have very strong capabilities. We have a nanoparticle Israeli XJet ceramic printer, printing right now in alumina. We have some EOS machines, some Velo, and we actually do mid-sized pellet printing. We have worked with Parallax in general and very many different capacities. We've worked with them on an APEX program, helping coach SBIRs and STTRs. We have worked through OFRN before. We have led the OFRN, I think it was round 4 or 5, the SOAR, and we've partnered on many of other projects. So we help with teaming, we will help with the student engagement part. You know, a lot of times you'll have a small business that really wants to commercialize a technology, and we will step in as that partner, as well as bring in a large OEM or industry partner if that's what needed as well. And we also work with Parallax in advanced air mobility space. So working on commercializing that technology throughout the state. So just, you know, a handful of things that we have done, you know, in the past. And if you are a smaller organization not really knowing how to tackle OFRN and the RFP and dotting all your I's and crossing your T's, we can definitely step in to help in that space. Next slide. So we are in the process of setting up a innovation hub for defense and aerospace. So a lot of partners here that we've worked with in the past from the state level, regional level. Many of these projects that we currently have in-house would have matching funds to be able to be used for OFRN. So another really good reason, you know, to be able to partner with us to help meet that the cost share match that comes with this. We know a lot of people sometimes are constrained, and with the amount of state contracts that we have, we're able to use some of those dollars to partner on OFRN projects. And I think the last slide that I have is just my contact information. So if you are interested in a little bit more of a deep dive to the capabilities that YBI has in-house, or want to know what we're doing on our metal machines or material development or anything like that, please feel free to reach out to me directly. My cell phone and probably the best method to get a hold of me. Text me, or my email is there as well. All
Awesome.
right, I think that's it for me.
Yep. Thanks, Stephanie. Appreciate it. Excellent. All right, Mike, you're up next.
Great. Good afternoon, everybody. Mike McCann. I'm EC's Vice President of Innovation and Engagement. I'm thrilled to share a brief overview of what we do here. So Entrepreneur Center EC, we're an entrepreneur support and venture development organization based here in Dayton, Ohio. We support small businesses across the region and have more than 100 high growth, high tech startups that we're supporting across Ohio. So this is a snapshot of the types of resources we make available. So when somebody becomes a client, they get an experienced entrepreneur in residence. But we work from the earliest stages of concept development, helping founders validate problems, validate signs towards product market fit. And once we see that there's a high degree of potential, we'll engage as a client and make these types of resources available. Go to the next slide. We also have an innovation center here in Dayton, Ohio. So for folks who are looking for office space, we have 100,000 square feet that we manage at the Arcade Innovation Hub, a partnership with the University of Dayton. So 140 resident companies and growing. So the bottom line is folks here are maybe working on ideas and need help with validating those ideas, maybe different resources that could help go from research into product and ultimately market. We are a resource and a service that could help. So thank you for the opportunity. And Becky, if you could, I didn't include my contact information here, so if you would not mind dropping my email address into the chat, so if folks want to follow with me, they can. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. And I'll add in that the hub there in Dayton is also where the Defense Innovations On-Ramp Hub Ohio program is also housed, which is a program that is managed by Parallax Advanced Research as well. So we can help out with those kinds of things too, if you'd like. Next slide, please, Becky. As I think I mentioned earlier, is that we do provide resources for team matchmaking. So if you need a partner, if you're an academic PI and you're looking for maybe a small business or somebody that has similar interest in wanting to put together a proposal, we can help with that. We can do the vice versa. So if you're a industry partner looking for an academic collaborator, we can help with that as well and fill those gaps. And we can also help if you're already have industry and academia team members put together, but maybe you need a sponsor on one of our federal partners side. We can also help make those connections too. So again, all of that is on our OhioFRN.org Round 7 solicitation website. So you can go there and take a look. And of course, if all else fails, please feel free to shoot an email to Becky or myself, or to the generic OFRN website that is email address, excuse me, which is on the website. Next slide, please. This is kind of just what the matchmaking partner inquiry looks like, and there I happen to see, and I'll mention it because it's related to this, is from somebody in the Q&A about, do we need partnerships in place before the application is submitted? So you do have to have your team put together, because the proposal will include all of the team members for whichever AOI you happen to be submitting your proposal for. So again, that's why it's critical to go ahead and start working on putting that team together right now, which is why we offer this service to you all. So if you need any help, reach out right away, and we will get started on trying to help you put together that team to be able to hopefully put together a winning proposal. Next slide, please. And again, so if you have any questions, that OFRN-question@parallaxresearch.org, you can submit something there if you would like. You can send something to either Becky or myself. Our emails are becky.mesher@parallaxresearch.org or mark.bartman@parallaxresearch.org. I think they're somewhere in here probably. I'm not sure for that. And then, of course, there is the frequently asked questions on the bottom of the round 7 opportunity of the website, where it says view FAQ. So you can click on that link, and it will take you to all of these questions that have been asked and answers from our subject matter experts that get posted there for those questions. Next slide. Again, feel free to contact us if you have any questions. If this is very specific, so if you need a federal collaborator, please include that information that's listed there. So you know who you are, who your organization is, what your email and phone number is. Very critical what AOI subtopic, because otherwise we won't really know where to direct your question. So please make sure you indicate what AOI subtopic it is that you need a collaborator for, and then of course any information about the project that would be helpful to us to be able to pass on. Next slide, please. And there is all the contact information that I just mentioned. So my email, Becky's email, and then the general OFRN question email address that can be used for anything that you have for that. And then, of course, most importantly, the OFRN website, which is ohiofrn.org. And I think that is the last slide. Am I correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Excellent. And I'm pretty good. I'm almost exactly on time. I'm actually about a minute early. So, Becky, do you have anything to add?
The only thing I have to add is that we are working hard to get all the FAQ questions, all the Q&A into the FAQ. So be patient. I'll get it up there. If you get to the point where you really need an answer on something, just send something to the OFRN-question@parallaxresearch.org, and I'll bump that to the top of the list.
Right. Excellent. And I see Stephanie put her email in the chat as well. So, and I think we have most of the emails. Mike's email is in there as well. So if you have any questions for any of them. Stephanie, you raised your hand. Did you have a comment?
No, I think I might have bumped that. Sorry.
No problem. All right, I think that does it for today. So key upcoming meeting or webinars is March the 6th is the next one, which is the training webinar, where is very important that if you're going to put together a proposal, you really need to have somebody attend that, or let us know if for some reason you can't make it, so that we can make arrangements for you to be able to view it at a later date. And then the next webinar that we have planned for asking questions to our subject matter experts is March 28th. Is that right, Becky?
March 20th.
March 20th, sorry. So March the 20th is the next webinar. So, but again, all of that is on our website too. So if you go to the ohiofrn.org website and go under solicitations in round 7, you will see all of the information that you need there. All right. Well, thank you so much to everybody that joined today. We truly appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you so much to all of our subject matter experts. And we look forward to reading some great proposals here coming up in a couple of months. Everybody have a great day, and I'll probably see many of you soon over the next several months. Thank you so much.